Hello, this is Goku's son DBZ. It's been a few months since I've done a video course on my main channel. And this one's going to be a countdown of who I feel, or also based on people, friends, and others I've talked to, co-workers, on who is the top 20 best wrestlers of all time. Now, of course, I don't say WWE or anything because it's a mixture of performers from WWE, made their name there, WWF, ECW, WCW, or NWA. But this is a countdown of the top 20, not specifically mine. Mine would be different, but this is a mixture, whether they were good on the mic, but it's more revolved around their in-ring performance, which is why I did not say top 20 superstars, because these are people who made names from the 70s to current day. Now let's get to this vlog started. Coming in at number 20, he became known first as Razor Ramon, and then later on he would go to WCW, be one of the three founders of the NWO, which of course would change his name to Scott Hall. Overall, he was a pretty good performer. I liked the sort of thing, the way he tried to come across, I guess you could say, as like a Italian gangster type, is the way he tried to come across, saying, "Hey, yo," and things like that. Coming in at number 19 is, of course, never been a heel in the WWE, was in WCW, and a well-known popular one with the kids, but he gets in the top 20 because he has great in-ring performance ability. Rey Mysterio, and of course in WCW he was called Rey Mysterio Jr. But number 19. Coming at number 18, I feel is perhaps was one of the greatest talents that WWF ever had, and it was sad to see his life cut drastically short, falling when he was trying to do an entrance to the ring. He was, I think, one of the biggest underrated stars that WWF ever had, and one of the greatest, I feel, athletes that they ever had, and that is Owen Hart, the youngest of the 12 siblings of the Hart family. And I just think that it's sad how he doesn't get more respect in his memory than he does. Sad and not right. Coming in at number 17 is somebody who became pretty well known through WWE and is in TNA now. He made his name best, I think, in the days of ECW. Rob Van Dam, RVD. He's proven great job with his overall, with his different style. It moves from the top rope, and with his different kicks he's used. I feel that he's one of the better ones, definitely from the late 90s into new millennia. Coming in at number 16 is a true legend. He went by 3 alter egos. He was known as, at time, Cactus Jack. He was known as Mankind. And of course, the hipster do love. And that is none other than Mick Foley. I'm sure nobody can deny that Mick Foley is really essential, definitely to the 90s. One of the most important figures to the formation of the Attitude Era. And it was great, sort of like of normal matches. The last great match, of course, he had, and I feel, was, of course, the Hell in a Cell match against Triple H. A really good match overall. Coming in at number 15, another co-founder of the NWO, Kevin Nash, which, of course, was also known as Diesel. And a lot of people probably don't know how he started actually in WCW originally, as he was known as Oz. He came out dressed up as like the Wizard of Oz. It's kind of sad. Google it. It's interesting. But that's overall, but he became a very important figure at WCW into the Monday Night Wars. But coming in next at number 14, a lot of people would probably want to be higher, but I think overall, halfway decent athlete, but I think it was more about his popularity that made him about the biggest name in the late 90s, and a key element of the Attitude Era, and that is, of course, Stone Cold Steve Austin. And being famous for, in 96, of course, saying Austin 3:16 says, "I just whooped your ass." Of course, after he beat and won King of the Ring against Jake the Snake Roberts. Coming in at number 13, great agility, great overall wrestling in-ring ability, and great mic skills as well on top of it. And of course, he actually presently has a decent voice for singing, and that is Y2J Chris Jericho. He comes in at number 13, I think a deserving spot, because he has proven he has great in-ring ability. And, I mean, his move, the Lion Tamer or the Walls of Jericho, great submission hold. But coming in at number 12 is the late great Eddie Guerrero, which became famous for the 5-star frog splash. Definitely, because a lot of people don't realize it was actually created by a former tag team partner of his before he passed away years ago. And then Eddie Guerrero carried it on in the legacy of that maneuver. And I feel Eddie is definitely important. Definitely was very key to the early millennia in the WWS/WWE. I mean, he had a lot of great matches over the years, but indeed, he definitely deserved a spot at number 12. Number 11 was somebody who, up until then, they never seen somebody of his size with his agility, and that is somebody who became famous for his undefeated streak, 20-0 now at WrestleMania. That is the Phenom, The Undertaker. And coming in at number 10, somebody who is definitely an expert in submissions. Sorry to Daniel Bryan, don't get me wrong, he's got some decent submissions, but the problem is he uses maneuvers that other people made famous, like the ankle lock, which Kurt Angle at number 10, I think really helped make it become anonymous and huge. Angle is perhaps one of the greatest in-ring athletes I have seen in my 15 years of watching wrestling. I've watched a lot of wrestling of the 80s DVDs, VHS videos of 80s matches. And early 90s, I didn't get into around 96 into professional wrestling. But, so actually, yeah, 16 years. But definitely Kurt Angle deserves a top 10 spot. He proved with his ability and being first ever Olympic gold medalist. Coming in at number 9 is the game Triple H. What I like about Triple H is he has done more research on wrestling maneuvers than most of the current day or people who started in the mid-90s like he did. Because he uses signature maneuvers from multiple different older wrestlers of the 70s and 80s, which made famous by others, and then he took it to a next level, and he created, I think, a very, of course, imaginary finishing maneuver, of course, being the pedigree. I feel is one of the best maneuvers ever, finishing-wise, and definitely deserved a spot in the top 10. Now, of personal wrestlers, just for my own private list, he'd be my top 3 favorites of all time. But of overall wrestlers of all time, top 20, and not including myself, but other people's views, that's where he gets at number 9. Coming in number 8 is somebody who I felt definitely deserves to be on a lot of wrestling videos and DVDs, but because of things that went bad in 07, Vince McMahon basically wiped off the face of wrestling existence, Chris Benoit. And, I mean, it's bad what happened with the family, but a lot of people don't seem to realize it was really the doctor's fault. Because the combination of the prescription drugs combined with the steroids made a lethal combination. But he definitely deserved a top 10 spot. I mean, he was one of the best technician wrestlers of all time. His headbutt from the top rope and the crippler crossface. One of the best, I think, honestly, submissions I've ever seen in professional wrestling. Nobody can deny that Chris Benoit is perhaps one of, I think, the top 5 greatest technician wrestlers of all time, along with perhaps also people like Kurt Angle. And somebody else who's also a little bit higher on this list, I would also put up in the top 3 technician wrestlers. Coming in at number 7, Hollywood Hulk Hogan. A lot of people would say, why is he so high up? Or not higher? Well, I can't help that, but he got up there because, I mean, you have to understand the amount of credibility he has. I mean, Hulkamania was enormous in the mid to late 80s, and he revolutionized again wrestling in the 90s when he became a heel, a bad guy, and helped found the NWO and be called Hollywood Hogan. But the point is his influence on professional wrestling, the 80s into the 90s, and even to the beginning of the new millennia, is insane how much influence he's had. But coming in at number 6, somebody who has never worked a day for WWE/WWF. That is the phenom of the WCW, Sting, who stuck with WCW right until the end, and then went to TNA and is there to this day as the GM of Impact. But Sting comes in at number 6 because I love his submission, which is almost identical to the sharpshooter. Of course. But definitely, I think Sting, athletic, agility-wise, definitely one of the best. Coming in at number 5, one of, I think, the top 3 greatest technician wrestlers of all time, which I'm sad not to see on a lot of top wrestling lists by Vince in WWE. And that is Ken Shamrock, which I think, sure, Alberto Del Rio's arm breaker may look like a good submission, but his doesn't hold a candle to Ken Shamrock's cross-arm breaker. I mean, man, if you're talking real, trust me, Ken Shamrock's the real deal. He fought in the Octagon back in the early days before Brock Lesnar made it supposedly big. But there were greats in WWE that were great in UFC before Brock. There was Ken Shamrock, there was Dan the Beast Severn, there was Steve Blackman. Greats before him. Coming in at number 4, I'm sure no one can deny Mr. WrestleMania, one of the greatest performers of all time in WWE history, and that is HBK, the Heartbreak Kid, Shawn Michaels, coming in at number 4 on the list. And I think nobody can deny he deserves to be in the top 5 because he always got the crowds behind him. He showed great job, and you could always hear, actually, his Sweet Chin Music kick, always hear it hit the person's head. And, he had great determination. When doctors were telling him not to perform and stuff, he still performed that match at WrestleMania 14 against Steve Austin, one of the greatest WrestleMania matches ever. He was influenced in another great match, a triple threat at WrestleMania 20. Him, Triple H, and Chris Benoit. One of, I think, the top 5 greatest WrestleMania matches I've ever seen, but I can't deny one of, I think, perhaps the second, if not the number 1 greatest match ever in WWE WrestleMania history. The Iron Man match, WrestleMania 12, HBK versus none other than the Hitman, Bret Hart. Definitely one of the greatest of all time. Coming in at number 3, the charismatic, electrifying man in sports entertainment, third generation wrestler, The Rock. You can't deny he has great talent, great mic skills. You can't deny that, period. Coming in at number 2, Bret the Hitman Hart. Some people may not have his high on the list, but given I grew up in the mid-90s and stuff, I knew who Bret Hart was. Kids today have probably not much of a clue who Bret is, other than the special guests and special appearances. He was, trust me, one of the greatest people ever in ring, period. And I don't think anybody can deny that. Anybody who calls himself a true professional wrestling fan can't deny that Bret the Hitman Hart is truly one of the greatest of all time. I mean, it's amazing. And his family invented the sharpshooter, which has become one of the top 3 most infamous submissions ever. And now, finishing off the list, because the video is getting a little long for YouTube length. Number 1, today not one of the greats in the 90s, not as great as he was in the 80s, but still very key to really the building of the WCW, I think, and he designed himself, actually, the World Heavyweight Championship design, which we see even to this day used by Vince, of course, and of course currently held by Sheamus. And that is Ric Flair, the Nature Boy, which was enormously well known in the 70s. He really helped build up professional wrestling in the 70s into the 80s, and him and Hogan together brought wrestling to an entire new level in the 80s. And even into the early and mid-90s, he helped influence the formation of WCW, with Hogan as well again. No one can deny the influence of Ric Flair is incredible. But I'll get ready to get off, and I hope that you enjoy this list of the top 20 wrestlers of all time. Leave me a comment. Let me know who you think are the best of all time and what you think of my list. And give me ideas for future wrestling videos, vlogs, or any other types of vlogs. I always like ideas for new things that I can do. But, as always, this is Goku Son DBZ. Peace out. And until next time in YouTube land, have a good rest of the year. And cross your fingers on Doomsday, December 21st.